The following is rated not safe for work. It contains strong language, adult situations, and lots of spoilers. Discretion is advised.
In the criminal justice system, cinematic-based offenses are considered especially heinous. The dedicated attorneys who investigate these villainous films are members of an elite squad known as the Reels of Justice. These are their stories.
Order, please, order. The Reels of Justice is now in session. Judge Big Ben Haslar presiding. Your eyes for the Honorable Judge Haslar. Thank you, bailiff. I missed the scare taker, though. It feels like less work for some reason. Be seated. Welcome to the Reels of Justice. Today we're hearing the case of The People vs. Alien Resurrection, a 1997 sci-fi horror action movie about clone of Ripley battling a menace of the xenomorphs. For those of you unfamiliar with our court proceedings, we are here to determine if this film is guilty of being a bad movie. As always in this courtroom, films are considered excellent until proven awful, and the burden of proof lies upon the prosecution to prove beyond a shadow of reasonable doubt that this film is guilty. Mr. J.D. Ryznar.
Once in all of that.
That's right, one take. I don't do two. Mr. J.D. Ryznar, you're representing the prosecution. You may present your opening statement.
Hey, how's it going? I'm the lawyer for the prosecutor. Listen, this movie is a turd. Alien Resurrection is a shitty movie. I don't know who this main character is. It certainly isn't Weird Ripley. And it's totally weird for the Alien movies. It shouldn't be that way. It should feel more like the other Alien movies. Or be totally weird and get rid of the stuff that I don't like about the other Alien movies to feel fresh. More on that as I continue my argument. My opening statement is that it's shitty. There's no main character. I don't know who to root for. Weird Ripley is weird. and I got a big problem with the aesthetics.
That's a good start.
Thank you, Mr. Ryznar. Bailiff, you can put this turd into evidence. Appearing on behalf of the defense as Mr. You are a beautiful, beautiful butterfly, Ryan Luis Rodriguez. Please present your opening statement.
I am not here today to try and convince you that Alien Resurrection is the best installment in a surprisingly long-lasting franchise, nor am I here to convince you that it's a great movie. Per Mike Natale, all I need do is prove that it isn't a bad movie, and it's not. It's far too interesting to be bad, has far too much on its mind to be accused of phoning it in. We will discuss many things today if I have my say about it, touching on the cast, the history of the series itself, its malleability concerning the many auteurs who have crossed paths with it, and the many fascinating choices it makes. Is it a good Alien movie? Probably not. It's far too idiosyncratic and reflexively witty to be considered part of that franchise, but that's what makes it inherently worth discussing. It's almost as if 20th Century Fox took the aborted, no pun intended, path that Universal almost took by making the second Jaws sequel, Jaws 3 People Zero, making a kind of farce that is frankly irresistible. If you came in expecting a straight sequel, my heart goes out to you. That's not what you got. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Thank you. Case dismissed.
Thank you, Mr. Rodriguez, because I was hoping for a sequel. Mr. Ryznar, you may present your first exhibit.
Oh, I'm intimidated. I gotta say, I didn't go to a good law school.
He has that effect.
And this guy sounds real prepared, and he said malleable and auteur within 5 seconds of each other. So my case may be fucked. Or disorganization. All right,
we're high concept here. We tune out the fanciness of the words because otherwise Dylan would win every case if that were true.
Okay, this is Exhibit A, industrial tunnels. Alien movies all take place in industrial tunnels. We're now at the fourth movie full of industrial tunnels, and it's tiresome. I will be the first to say Alien 3 is a bad movie. It's worse than this movie. I will say that. It is boring. The crime.
I will warn you, Mr. Ryznar, Alien 3 was found not guilty in this courtroom.
True.
That's insane. It's so boring and dull.
Well, we can see it on appeal.
Oh, I'm one of those real sweaty lawyers.
It was the director's cut, I believe, that we found not guilty.
Yes.
The assembly cut.
The assembly
Sorry.
cut, yes.
Okay, so more time of boredom.
Yeah, I was a little longer and slower. They took out any fun.
So what they've done for this fourth Alien film is they got themselves a real auteur. This French dude that made those really good movies like Delicatessen that really were visionary and interesting and cool to watch. And they gave him a movie, and I think the only directions they gave him is there has to be an alien, and there has to be some form of Ripley, and there has to be industrial tunnels. There has to be rafters above, and there has to be an underground tunnel floor, and people have to run around in tunnels through the whole movie. And he might have said, he's French, I see the other movies, they're all industrial. Maybe we go on a planet with some scenery and they hide in the trees. No, it has to have industrial tunnels. The result of this is the whole point of getting a fancy auteur is crushed by the claustrophobic scenery. And you can't get a new vision of an alien movie because you're just watching every other alien movie you've ever seen, but with more fisheye lenses.
Mr. Rodriguez, he said auteur twice, and you said it once. What say you?
Auteur. There you go. I've said it 4 times.
Oh, damn.
Reminds me of my favorite movie, Atora.
Boo.
Oh, boo.
But is this like too boring to look at with all of its industrialness?
Oh, I don't think so at all. In fact, let me jump ahead to one of my cases that I have, or not one of my cases, one of my arguments that I was going to save, but I won't because we're bringing up the auteur. There you go. I've said it 5 times.
Fantastic.
I would like a tour of something other than industrial tunnels.
Okay, I'm calling a moratorium at 10 auteurs, just so you guys know.
Okay, so we have Ridley Scott. We have James Cameron. We have David Fincher. Not a bad selection of directors to be in the company of. Enter Jean-Pierre Jeunet, best known at the time for The City of Lost Children, soon to be best known for the masterpiece known as Amélie, never to be best known for A Very Long Engagement, a movie I still haven't seen and probably never will. Jeunet is more likely to crib from Luc Besson, whose gonzo science fiction epic, The Fifth Element, debuted at the start of the same summer this year. And he's going to do that more than he is going to crib from Ridley Scott's aesthetic. But there is something about the wide-angle compositions and bizarre Terry Gilliam dolly zooms that at times look like Barry Sonnenfeld's cinematography in the Coen brothers' Raising Arizona, the camera leaping towards the faces of the actors in moments of intensity. By hiring Jeunet, who always had a wacky sense of humor, and by enlisting the screenwriting talents of war criminal Joss Whedon, essentially doing a trial run for what would become his best television series, Firefly, you have this subversive sense of humor that gently pokes fun at the franchise. Yes, it is an outlier, best known as The Weird One, but because of the internal continuity, it fits within the paradigm, even as it stands out with a truly alien tone, no pun intended. Also, Jeunet is the best photographer of the titular creatures since Ridley Scott raided from the Spielberg playbook and artfully avoided shooting the monster until it was absolutely necessary. When they're practical and super goopy, probably caked in KY jelly, this thick veneer of slime, they haven't looked this good since 1979. Yes, there are digital xenomorphs in the picture, and they look about as good as the Rod puppet in Alien 3, only less charmingly quaint. But when they are the full focus of the scene, they're there. And don't even get me started on the hybrid alien, which has the body of the xenomorph, but a face that resembles a skull with eye sockets containing tiny little eyeballs. And it looks absolutely iconic, even if they never made another movie and couldn't really revisit the concept.
Mr. Ryznar, how did you feel about the look of the aliens themselves?
They were too wet. I don't know where that
It's
wet
good
was
enough
coming
as
from.
far as you ask me.
I don't know where that wet was coming from. They were just dripping constantly. There was no water running on them from above. A lot of times in science fiction, I like to think of, and all directors should think of this: why? Why does this creature we created have the biology it has? And to me, I see absolutely no reason other than it looks cool that these should be dripping with water for no reason whatsoever.
I was
They have
dripping with water
acid-
on my last date.
They have acid spit and acid blood, but they have water running off of them that's completely benign? Give me a break. And I don't even know what was going on with that alien that kind of looked a little different and had a regular tongue. I lost track because I was so bored. I was another industrial tunnel. Forget about it. Another thing, it was like, okay, so imagine if in Jaws 4, there were a bunch of scenes of like sharks hanging out. It loses all mystery. It loses all. There was nothing scary. I was never on the edge of my seat in this movie because the aliens were given a persona in a world right away, and in a way they were like just regular Eastern European bad guys in a Taken movie.
Do you have a second exhibit, Mr. Ryznar?
I do. Let me see what it was. Yeah. What the fuck is up with Super Ridley? None of that makes any sense. None of the science, not the way she acted. She was inconsistent as a character. First of all, the science of it. I don't know. I think maybe if you cloned a pregnant sheep, it wouldn't come out pregnant with the same baby it was pregnant with. Also, why does she have superpowers? Is it because they cloned her and the alien? And why didn't she have superpowers when she had the alien in her before? Or why doesn't anybody have superpowers? Why is slam dunking a basketball superpowers? Why are they playing basketball in space in 200 years? Listen, I might be going a little off track, but this is all...
No, these are important questions.
These are very important for the jury, yes. Mr. Rodriguez, what is going on with Ripley?
Well...
also, wait, hold on a second. Also,
okay, go ahead.
She's like, oh, I can barely... That is a glove. That, like, she's super stupid. And then all of a sudden, she's like, I'm just regular Ripley. I'm just acting weird by 10 minutes later. Okay, sorry, continue.
Mr.
What was
Rodriguez?
the question?
How do you feel about Ripley? Her powers, how they're inconsistent, cloning the aliens into her.
I keep calling her Ripley.
I love Ripley in this movie because Ripley is not in this movie. Ellen Ripley died at the end of the previous film. Her body melted by molten magma. Say that 3 times fast.
No.
The character that Sigourney Weaver plays in this film is the aforementioned Ripley 8, a clone of a clone of a clone of a clone. She has blood that is both plasma and acid, the natural evolution of a human/xenomorph melding. And I cannot say that I understand the scientific logic behind that character. All I can tell you is that it's one of my favorite aspects of the film. I love the fact that it goes weird and kinky in a way that the Alien series really hasn't up to this point. And for that, I kind of have to love it, even if I don't really understand the internal consistency of it.
Well, you have to understand the eternal consistency for it to be a good movie. I mean, I don't even think she's the main character, but it's arguably your main character. So you need consistency of character if it's going to hold a movie together. The fact that she's like one way, she's going to protect the aliens 1 minute, then for no reason she's going to fight them the next. She says I can control them, but then she has no control over them. Her inconsistency of character throws the plot into a complete mess. And so I don't think you can say she hasn't concede that she has an inconsistent character and say it's still a good movie.
But that's one character, not the entire movie. But who would you say is the protagonist then? I'm very curious.
That's another one of my arguments.
Let's hear it.
All right.
This movie has no protagonist.
Ah!
Oh, that was a twist ending there. Twist argument.
Industrial tunnels.
I think I set this up at the beginning. But a main character is somebody who starts in one place. Their status quo is challenged. They adapt to that, and they change, and they're then able to fight at the end. What you have in this movie is a half dozen people, none of whom you're rooting for, none of whom you even really know what they are. I mean, some guy that seems like he has a dubbed voice gets a bunch of space cash from crazy Don Hedaya at the beginning because he brought him something, some body of some, I don't know, I don't even remember. But space cash too, space cash. Yeah, who uses cash in space?
Space
That
credit's
much
not what
space
it's worth.
cash.
Yeah, they're called credits.
But it's a cash. There's paper. What was I saying? Oh, there's no protagonist. There's no protagonist. I just don't know who I'm rooting for. Obviously, the scientists are not good guys, but the pirates are like bad guys that you're supposed to love. Winona Ryder, I don't even know what she's doing there other than looking all cute Winona Ryder-y.
Mm-hmm.
And then Weird Ripley is just like this completely inconsistent character. So you're just kind of going from like scene to scene. You're getting shown really creative, gross things, but you just don't know who to root for. And when you don't know who to root for, you don't have a sense of what the story is. And everything is just kind of like a blur. And it's all in industrial tunnels. It's just blur through industrial tunnels.
Mr. Rodriguez, is there someone to root for, or is creepy, weird things all you need?
Well, first of all, I think creepy, weird things is enough to sustain a movie, but that's just my opinion. But I actually do think that there are people to root for. I do actually root for the space pirates because I love watching murderers in space. That's always fun. Because when they're earthbound, but when they're spacebound, hell yeah. And I do actually root for Ripley Ripley 8 rather, simply because I don't know what she's going to do from scene to scene, and JD has alleged that is a negative thing. I actually think that it actually keeps the audience on its toes because you don't know what she's going to do from scene to scene, and the fact that she is a copy of a copy of a copy of a copy, if you have a third generation of a vinyl record, there's going to be some warping to it. It's not going to play the same way every single time, and I think that's what's interesting about her character.
But is she a copy of a copy of a copy of a copy?
Yes, because she's 8.
I know she's 8, but she's the 8th attempt from... I assume she's the 8th attempt from the same DNA. And that's why all the ones before are so fucked up. A copy of a copy of a copy of a copy... Those things were getting more and more fucked up. How did she turn out perfect? I think she's in the 8th attempt. I think that she's just one off from Ripley. That's my theory. But then again, this science makes zero sense. So your theory is as valid.
They did make a lot there. Did you have any other exhibits, Mr. Ryznar?
Let me see what my main points here.
Here it comes.
Late second act, third act exposition about shit I don't care about. Why do we need to know Winona Ryder's robot exposition? Who cares if she was made by other robots? Who gives a fuck? Also, I don't care about that story. If I want to care about that story, tell me about that story at the beginning, and maybe, just maybe, we have somebody to root for. Maybe we've got this underdog robot who's in this situation. Why does a robot have to be a reveal in alien movies every time in the third act? Why can't we just this is a robot and she feels like a human and she grows emotionally? Let's tell her story in this and not just have her be scenery with yet another surprise. It's a robot reveal toward the end of the second act, third act. There's other exposition toward the end too. I don't know.
that was just my most.
I think that's a good punch on its own, though. Mr. Rodriguez, the Winona twist, like we've seen the robots before. Is this new? Is this necessary for an alien movie?
Well, I do want to address JD's claim that there's always a twist involving a robot. There's only two. There's the original Alien and then this. Bishop in Aliens and in Alien 3 is acknowledged as a robot the entire time. And I think that by withholding that information about Winona Ryder's character, it's trying to play on a similar theme to the original Alien when you find out that, I think Ash is his name, the Ian Holm character. I think it's definitely a choice to remind the audience of that earlier movie. Whether or not that was a wise thing, I don't know, but
It's not.
I like the fact that
The fact that there's a question even means it's not a wise thing.
Okay, thank you. I like the reveal that she's a robot simply because the first time I saw this movie, I actually thought that she was dead, even though she's second billed and above the title. And I think that if you don't pay attention to the credits, it's actually kind of an interesting thing. But I guess GD disagrees.
This is a movie where being shot through the chest, you're not dead, but falling into a pit of water that everybody has fallen in before, and you are dead, which is what happened to the Dreadlock character.
Did you find your last exhibit, Mr. Ryznar, or are you prepared to rest? You got some good ones.
Let's see. Whiskey Block.
Been there, friend.
Space Shopping Network. Breath spray beat security.
Oh, that was great.
What's the point of having a breath security thing if you just get somebody's breath and you spray it in?
It's the dumbest bio security ever. One thing I do want to say one thing that I did like about this movie was Crazy Dan Hedaya. That was funny. Completely off tone from the rest of the movie, but it was amusing. What are you expecting, Santa Claus? Earthman, what a shithole. Ugh. These are bad lines I didn't like.
You have to fuck to get off this boat.
Okay. This is my favorite. This is my favorite ever. Meaning my least favorite. This movie makes no sense. It's so stupid. It's just all cool for the sake of cool. This will be my last argument. Ripley goes into the clones. Look at these horrifying clones of me. Oh, they all this one has a mouth on the side. Oh, they're all crazy clones. She gets to the most horrifying one, which is one with a big arm that's in pain. And it's in so much pain. It's her face. And she's like, kill me. Please kill me. Kill me. So what does she do? Does she take some shit that'll put her to sleep and make her dead? Does she take a bullet to the head? No. She picks the most painful death ever.
Which was?
Thrower.
Yeah.
So she can continue to wheeze and scream, kill me, kill me, kill me for another 3 minutes. And then all the glass tubes are flammable too. She catches the whole thing on fire and burns them all. But come on, Ripley, have some empathy for your in pain self.
Thank you, Mr. Ryznar. Mr. Rodriguez, you may present your first exhibit.
As I mentioned in my opening statement, the Alien series is surprisingly malleable. The first film in 1979 is essentially a haunted house horror movie that just so happens to be set in outer space. The second film in 1986 is a balls-to-the-wall war picture, action instead of gothic tension. The third film in 1992 is a nihilistic funeral dirge, belonging in the subgenre of bummer. This film, which represents the closest timeline between pictures in the history of the franchise, is a full-blown Euro-wacko science fiction movie. It's like the franchise equivalent of David Bowie, changing styles and aesthetics to suit the stories being told, constantly altering its identity without sacrificing cohesion, or as JD might argue, in the face of that. As different as each film is, they do fit in the same universe, even when this film, takes place 200 years after the previous installment. The series has always dealt in imagery of rape, embodied by the facehugger, which literally sticks its reproductive organ down your throat and fills you with its seed, pregnancy, embodied by the alien that incubates inside Ripley in the third film, bursting from her chest as she takes a dive into that aforementioned molten magma, and Motherhood, embodied by Ripley's protective relationship to Newt in the second film. But finally, the series gets around to abortion metaphors, with Ripley having to destroy the hybrid baby alien, which demonstrates characteristics of human and xenomorph that is essentially the fruit of her womb. There's even a scene, which we've already mentioned, where Ripley encounters a room full of discarded fetuses, feti, and failed clones, one of which still breathes and begs her to kill them. It's profoundly upsetting, but it demonstrates just how much Alien Resurrection has on its mind. The series also starts to incorporate some queer themes with the dominant submissive relationship between Ripley 8 and Winona Ryder's synthetic Call, two characters that basically hate what they are. And it even features a moment in which Ripley literally fingers a bullet hole in Call's chest, just in case you didn't get the subtext.
Huh.
Mr. Ryznar, did you get it? Is there
I
enough
love
of a
text, and I didn't get that at all.
is there enough of a continuation of the previous films here, or do you think it still doesn't fit within the continuity that you were hoping for as a sequel?
Well, I think they established the motherhood theme strongly in the second one, and then, they just kept going with it. There's subtext, but if you don't have a movie to hold subtext together, what do you got? You just got a bunch of subtext. You got something for some fancy schmancy defense attorney in a movie podcast to talk about.
Exactly why they did it.
Make him sound like you went to film school or something. No. You gotta have a movie to earn that subtext, to make it feel like a big cohesive piece. And I think I think myself and the defense are on two sides as to whether or not it's cohesive or not. I can't see the subtext as a strength if the movie doesn't hold together for me.
Fair enough. We'll see what the jury thinks about it. Mr. Rodriguez, what's your next exhibit?
I have one final exhibit, and that is the cast. So this is not Ripley, it's Ripley 8. And as different as the character is on a surface level, Sigourney Weaver's performance is phenomenal. It's an idiosyncratic and physical effort that perfectly complements the strange avenues that the storytelling finds itself traveling down. I would even argue that it's her best performance in the franchise, and I stress reminding the court that she was nominated for Best Actress at the 1987 Academy Awards for her performance in Aliens, which is insane, something that rarely happens for genre films, much less sequels. And surrounding her is a murderer's row of character actors, likely all chosen because Jean-Pierre Jeunet loves distinct faces. We have Winona Ryder, who can often be a one-note performer, but here finds herself kind of believable as a robot space pirate, possibly the coolest character description I've ever heard. In addition to Ryder, we have the great, quickly dispatched Dan Hedaya, who gets to show off his considerable shoulder hair that rivals Robin Williams in terms of hirsuteness. We have Ron Perlman, reuniting with Jeunet after City of Lost Children, basically doing a trial run for his performance in Blade 2. We have Brad Dourif, always worth incorporating into your film, as the lead cloning scientist who seemingly dies within the first 40 minutes, but emerges later, having been cocooned by the breeding xenomorphs, allowing him to stand in the wings of the stage and provide some eerie bits of exposition, handling pressure with grace. We have Leland Orser, perhaps our greatest twitchy actor this side of Kristen Stewart, who memorably pops a chestburster out of his ribcage through the brain of another villain. That is awesome. We have Michael Wincott.
Hold on one second.
Sorry.
I'm sorry to
You
interrupt.
have an objection?
No. I would like to say that was awesome. Okay, continue.
Sustained.
And we have Michael Wincott of Nope, perhaps the graveliest voice this side of Tom Waits, who surprisingly doesn't feature in most of the movie but makes the most of his limited screen time. Just quality all the way around. I'm done. I rest.
Thank you, Mr. Rodriguez. Do you have a rebuttal to the cast at all, Mr. Ryznar?
Yeah, I do. Yeah. I mean, you can't say it's brilliant to cast Sigourney Weaver because you can't get the movie made if she's not attached to it.
I didn't say it was brilliant casting her. I said she does a great job.
She does do a great job.
Thank you.
And Ron Perlman and the rest of the cast.
Because she's Sigourney Weaver. And the rest of the cast is just the what's his name? Genet?
Genet.
It's the Genet players. I've seen all these people.
Genet 5.
So, you throw, the casting is, the act of casting is not inspired. I will not argue against a cast doing a good job. Nobody had an embarrassing acting performance. But that's a pretty low bar.
Not in this film.
It's a pretty low bar when you are making a professional movie.
Thank you all. Both sides have rested their cases. The attorneys will now present their closing arguments. Mr. Ryznar, you may begin.
Look, we've been through a great alien movie. We've been through a super great alien movie in Aliens. We've had a boring alien movie in Alien 3. This movie, I will not say it's as boring as Alien 3, but I will say it makes less sense and feels less like a part of the Alien franchise than the other 3 movies. There's cohesion amongst those other 3 movies, but this one is just so tonally off while sticking to the franchise in superficial ways, like xenomorph aliens, Ripley, and industrial tunnels. After that, and also sticking fingers in things being born, sure. Mothers, whatever. But it's so tonally off, it doesn't feel like an alien movie. Which is, which means it's not good. If you go to see an alien movie, you want to get that same feel. You want, I don't know what's behind the corner. I'm scared out of my mind. When's the jump going to come? Instead, you're just anticipating, I'm excited to see the next really gross kill. Which is a cool thing, but it's not it's not a great thing for an alien movie. Alien movies are about the suspense, the fear. This doesn't have it. That's a whole new argument. That's my closing argument.
Thank you, Mr. Ryznar.
That's what lack of organization gets you. Anybody back here in the audience who's going to law school, be more prepared when you're in trials.
No, you did fine. You did great. Mr. Rodriguez, you may present your closing argument. And if you can compare it to Beowulf, it tends to win jurors over.
This movie's
This
like
is shittier
Beowulf.
than
There
Beowulf.
you go.
It's shittier than Beowulf.
Order, Mike. Order.
Interesting. Interesting is not great. Interesting is not bad. It's the way station between the two. Maybe not enough to tip either way, but enough to make you actually pay attention. And there is much to pay attention to in Alien Resurrection. It's the natural thematic confluence of a series that somehow lasted for 18 years before going dormant for another 15, and then promptly dying again 5 years after that, only to be freeze-dried and removed from stasis for an upcoming television series by Fargo creator Noah Hawley, and consider me fascinated by whatever that ends up being. There is so much to chew on here. We've argued about it for over half an hour, and the fact that we could have such divergent feelings on the film and manage not to constantly repeat ourselves, that either means that it's the worst movie ever made, which it's definitely not, it's barely the worst of the franchise, or it has some artistic merit to it. You may not like what that artistic merit coalesces into, but it's hard to make the argument that anybody or in the cast or crew is phoning it in or shooting for an easy paycheck. The franchise should have stayed dead in 1992, with Ripley's titular resurrection representing the greatest metaphor in the film. Something came back. Something a little kinky, something very weird, something absolutely not guilty of being a bad movie. Thank you. Case dismissed.
Not quite. Thank you all. Members of the jury, Mr. Dylan J. Schlender, Mr. Big Ben Haslar, and Mr. Maynard Bangs, you have all heard the facts concerning this case, and it is now up to you to determine if this film is guilty of being a bad movie. The bailiff will escort you to the deliberation room to render your verdict. I got fingered in a hole once, and I just didn't care for it. That's
Jeez. All right, cool. Lots of industrial tunnels. I love that kind of talk. Schlendzo, what are you thinking?
Well, so I think Ryan hit the nail on the head that this is an interesting movie, and I think both sides brought up some very good points. Is the JD said the stuff they chose to ape from the other movies was some of the least interesting stuff. Like when he said, like, why not have aliens hiding in trees or something? It's like, that would seem like a natural progression for the series. And he's right. They are in a bunch of industrial tunnels. Like, it feels like you've seen a lot of the action before.
Well, I think the universe shows you that there might not be very much else. I mean, when they do leave, it's like Earth's a wasteland. I mean, if everything is in space,
but they could just land on
be this way.
They could land on any Class M planet. You know what I mean? Like the point is, it doesn't always have to be in spaceships, which is the point well taken. However, I do think it does work well in this movie. I think we get to see interesting things, like Ryan was saying, like her not being Ripley, but being Ripley 8 is pretty interesting. I got to admit, I agree with JD. The robot reveal, it is pretty dull.
Did you see it coming? I did.
I did not, because actually, this is actually a movie I saw in theaters.
Oh, sure. I'm probably the only one here that's seen it like for the first time. Then.
Yeah, no. So I
have seen this movie probably half a dozen times, and I still forgot she was a robot. Oh yeah,
isn't it fun getting old? You get to like see every movie for the first time again and again.
Well, the problem is I confuse 3 and this a lot because I always watch them together, and whenever I think I like 3, it's because of things that are in this movie, like the alien acid going through the floor and getting the guy's leg. I love that. I always think about it. And
I know. I can't believe either side mentioned the underwater scene. Like seeing the alien swim was really cool.
Despite it being CGI, it's a good.
But it worked because it was in the water, though. That's like it kind of gave it that motion it needed.
I want to hear from Big Ben. Big Ben, what do you think?
Sure, Big Ben, what do you got?
Too many industrial tunnels?
I was okay with that. This was a 50-50 movie for me because I liked how it was trying to do new things, but I wasn't married to the Alien franchise. I only really liked the first 2. So I liked it trying to do things. But on the other hand, like it seemed like a lot of the things it was trying to do was kind of silly. I almost suspect that Joss Whedon kind of wrote a funny script, and like the director tried to take it more seriously. So there's sort of a conflicting vision going on there. A lot of what the prosecutor hit on are things that bugged me, and they did continually pull me out. Like the whole Ripley cloning thing. You guys know I'm a narrative person. I want you to at least try to make some rules that make sense, and they don't even attempt.
I don't see how she could be pregnant off of the clone. Yeah, I mean,
and have acid blood and all.
They would need to extract 2 strands of DNA to even make that possible. And since all they want is the alien, they just need to extract the alien.
Well, right. And I don't know why the alien wouldn't have been viable in any of the other clones. Like, sure, like the Ripley body's hideous or grotesque, but the alien's not good. I don't know.
Wasn't pregnant? Yeah.
Yeah, you're right.
They didn't bother to answer that, and I like when they at least try to answer those questions.
And I love
they're
that
not hard
clone
questions
room.
to answer too. If you just took a step back.
Love the clone room sequence too, though. I mean, but JD's right.
When she pulls that flamethrower
out,
I thought that too.
Oh my god, I laughed. That was a great point. Absolutely true. I thought it was going to be a laser
shoot
rifle.
her like right in the head. Why are you
like
doing it this way?
Nope, not Ripley's way. Other things I liked. JD's big point was that it was tonally off, and I thought Ryan kind of countered that well. That the series doesn't have a tone, right? It goes from horror movie to action war movie to fuck of a bummer to I think he called this a Euro wackadoo, maybe.
Something I could
see, and I could see that a bit. But if this guy's got a history of and I haven't seen City of Lost Children, but I'm familiar enough with its aesthetic that it is also a lot of industrial tunnels. So if this is already this guy's kind of style, I can respect this as being like the fourth Auteurs sort of piece.
Yeah, I like, and like Ryan said too, it compares well to Fifth Element, which is also around the time, so it feels of the era of movies, not, So.
What do you think about no main character? Is there a main character?
I mean, I think it's the ensemble. You
Us
know,
not being with Ripley definitely hurts it that way. Yeah, you're probably right. It's the
Well, why
ensemble, it's the
is
group we're
Ripley
rooting
not the
for.
main character? Because she's a clone.
Because we don't know who she is. We don't know what she wants to do
She's-
all the time.
her
She's
motivations are
She
weird.
may be a
yeah.
clone of Ellen Ripley, but like I've watched 3 movies. I've already rooted for Ellen Ripley. I'm coming into the 4th rooting for Ellen Ripley, no matter how weird she is. The whole time I'm going, why are you weird? But I'm still rooting for her. I want to see her kill aliens. I want to see her fuck her on Perlman.
Yeah, I know,
I'm
but
rooting
then
for
I gotta say though, JD had a good point where it's like sometimes she's talking about like she feels empathetic towards the aliens, and then she's really ready to kill them, you know. And I would have liked to have seen them explore that conflict a bit more within her, you know. I mean, not that the alien movies are particularly deep anyway, but if they were gonna make that play, I would have liked to have seen more commitment.
Other things I liked, Prosecution was right. We see the aliens hanging out too much. There's that like whole scene where they're talking, and it totally kills their mystique.
Oh, yeah.
And I also agree with his assessment about Ripley 8. I do think this is just the 8th try. I don't think it's a clone of a clone of a clone.
That's how I interpreted it.
Defense points. I love and agree the cast is great, and it does have robot space pirates, which is great. Let's start locking in. Schlendzo, what are you thinking?
All right, so I've always had a bit of a soft spot for this movie. You know, it's one of those ones, you know, since you saw it in theaters and things. And I got to say, JD made a much better case than I thought could be made against this movie. But at the end of the day, I liked Ryan's case better. I think he had the stronger arguments of it with this being weird about the franchise, not necessarily having a coherent like theme, like everyone's saying, you know, you've gone from horror to war and so forth and all that, you know. And the cast is just pretty tremendous. There's really not a misstep from any of the players involved. So I'm gonna lock in not guilty this evening.
Mm-hmm. Big Bun.
Or this morning.
Beautiful Ben.
This one's hard for me. It is a 50-50 movie. I do like a lot of what Mr. Rodriguez presented. I think it's a reason why like the movie should be good. I like that it's trying things, but I do think it ultimately kind of fails in that goal. I think Mr. Rodriguez would also classify this as a gentleman's 5. I found myself agreeing in this case with the prosecution too much because there's just so much that takes me out of the movie in all these different scenes where they just try something that's just a little too far. That progeny alien at the end that they show too much. You're right. It kills the mystique so much. Nothing's in the shadows, nothing's in the imagination. And they just do ridiculous things like trying to suck it through that soda can of a hole.
You don't like that way? You don't like the scene where it gets sucked out of the space?
No,
Really?
I don't like the bullet ricochet. I don't like, or the flamethrower thing. Like none of this. It's all like a little too far. I like that it's trying things, but I just don't think it sticks that landing. So I found myself nodding along more to the prosecution this time. I'm going to go guilty.
All right. Now, I've seen this movie a lot. That's because I'm a fan of the series, but it's not one of my favorite ones in it. And one of the things that bothers me the most is that alien at the end. But I thought Ryan explained it pretty well that by giving it facial features, you know, she's able to resonate with it more. So it bothered me a little less. And watching it this time, it was so ugly. It kind of made for a great horror monster. So I mean, I think aliens are already kind of scary enough. I don't know that we needed to redesign it, but it put it into enough of a thing. So giving it 50-50, I don't want to be a hanging judge kind of guy. So I'm going to go not guilty. Let's get out there and tell that very handsome judge.
He's single, by the way.
And also hanging.
And never shuts up about it.
Mr. Foreman, have you reached a verdict?
We have, Your Honor. In the case of The People versus Alien Resurrection, we find the defendant not guilty of being a bad movie. Nobody's surprised at all. Wow.
Terrible. The verdict is so rendered. Alien Resurrection is free to go. It will be spared us trying to hit it with a firing squad by ricocheting bullets, which is finally okay because, you know, we probably couldn't hit it anyway. Court is adjourned.
I'm glad that you repurposed the guilty verdict.
I like the guilty verdict better.
Hey man, this is Private Arthur Kill outside the Reels of Justice. The trial's over, man. Trial's over. J.D. Ryznar, would you care to share your thoughts on the jury's verdict, man? Oh, man.
Yeah, it's a dumb jury, you know. I always tell everybody I meet, you know, you meet a lot of people, they say, I do everything I can to get out of jury duty. These are your smart friends, you know. Like, if you've been on a jury, you're like, you have to do jury duty because 90% of every jury are absolute idiots. And I think I got this problem today.
Would you mind reviewing our show on Apple Podcasts with that?
So I think that's just what it came down to. It's just like, I don't know. It came down to a jury that was beguiled by the flowery words of a well-educated defense attorney.
All right,
And a beguilable jury is a jury of ding-dongs.
No argument there. Oh, thank you, man. Oh, jeez, here comes Ryan Luis Rodriguez. Oh, what do you feel about today's trial, man? Oh, damn.
I think ultimately justice was served. I think JD, a lot of the things that he expressed are issues that I have with the movie as well, and of course I can't concede that in a court, so I can only tell you after the fact. But, you know, this movie's a gentleman's five. It straddles the line between good and bad. I think it's ultimately neither fish nor fowl, but the jury decided what it decided, and we just gotta live with that.
All right. Oh, what happened to the lights? They cut the power, man. What do you mean they cut the power? Oh, let's go back to the studio for post-trial analysis.
Oh man, this interview's over, man.
You know, I already made the over joke.
The bit's over. That's
Can
the
you
only
take one
joke.
line and like make it every line?
Yes,
For the
yes, you can if that's the only thing they have. Great case, JD. You brought up definitely all the points I had against this film, and I think Ryan brought up all the points I had pro, and you know, I think when it's 50-50, I'd rather see a movie live.
Yes, everything about this movie's been said.
No, better that one bad movie be punished than a million good ones set free, or whatever that is.
That's right.
Yeah,
Now, JD.
Now the trial's over, I can say, you know, I saw the first two Alien movies again within this year, and then I watched Alien 3 for the first time yesterday, and to get ready for this movie to make sure that I've seen everything leading up to it. And I gotta say, I enjoy Alien Resurrection. I enjoy the weird chances and choices that Jeunet makes and how grody it is, and you know, I wish there was a better movie there, but I really enjoyed it a lot more than Alien 3.
No argument here.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, I'm glad, and that means the system works. It usually doesn't, but
It's a scientific system. We've got it dialed in.
We have a long appeals process ready to go.
We do. So JD, what's been keeping you busy? What have you been working on lately?
Well, mostly I'm working on the new podcast. You know, I'm one of the original Yacht Rock team. We made that web show many, many years ago and had a podcast called Beyond Yacht Rock. And we stopped that a couple years ago. We just started podcasting again with two new podcasts. One is called $1 Billion Record Club, where we take a record from our personal collections and try to increase its value. It's usually a weird record, something that's underloved, something people don't appreciate. And then by the end of us playing the album and talking about it, it's worth $1 billion. We want our audience to buy the album, you know, right away before that value soars, and hopefully we'll make everybody rich.
And
Someone would have
definitely
to buy.
Not a pyramid scheme.
Not a pyramid scheme
No.
at all.
I mean, it sounds like it's within the rules. You know, you're creating or enticing interest.
Exactly.
That's allowed.
Yeah.
I imagine someone would have to hoard all of them, where finding them would be very difficult.
Yeah, when we cover platinum albums, the album that sold a lot of copies, we encourage our audience to buy as many copies as they can afford and then burn all but one.
I think you should do what Neil Young did and use them as shingles on your barn roof.
Ooh.
Which is what he did with yes. So he didn't waste them. Yeah, cool. And the other podcast.
It's called the Yacht Podcast. We used to do Yacht minisodes on our old podcast, where we rate songs and determine whether or not they're yacht rock songs. There's a lot of, controversy out there in the world. What's yacht rock? What's Nyacht? and myself and my three co-hosts are the ultimate authorities.
Mhm.
So we rate every song on the Yachtski scale. We listen to the song, we analyze it, we give it a number between 1 and 100. We average the scores together. If it gets 50 and above, it's a yacht rock song. Below 50 is yacht rock. So we have a scientific system, just like you guys do on this show. to
And it's
determine whether
never
movies are good or
wrong,
not.
just like us.
Never wrong. No.
Yeah,
There's too many people involved.
we're at least as accurate as the real courts, so that's how I sleep at night.
So I'm not as familiar with yacht rock as I should be. So what is like the most yacht rock song there ever was?
It's What a Fool Believes. What a Fool Believes really captures everything we're looking for in a yacht rock song. It's got jazz influence. It's difficult to play, jazzy chords. It has a lot of R&B influence coming from Michael McDonald and his background from the St. Louis R&B and gospel scene. And it's a solid pop song. It's aiming for the top of the charts. It's got a really nice bounce. It feels at home next to a Steely Dan song.
This is scientific.
Yeah, it
And
really is.
what's the most antithetical yacht song ever?
I mean, it's hard to say what an antithetical yacht song is, but the song that people get wrong the most about whether or not it's yacht rock is the Pina Colada song by Rupert Holmes.
They're just wrong to play it in general.
It's a real nice story song. The lyrics are never up front and center in a yacht rock song. This song is completely lyrically dependent. It's musically very, very simple. It's so simple, in fact, that when they were recording it, they ran out of budget from tape, and they had to loop. Dun 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 dun. They had to loop that because they couldn't afford to record anymore. Yacht is a metaphor. Yacht is a metaphor for quality craftsmanship more than songs about boating.
Oh yeah,
so
of
Love
course,
Shack,
yeah.
not yacht, because it's not quality craftsmanship.
Well, no, it just doesn't have. Oh gosh,
Man.
I gotta start all over again.
No.
Jazz and R&B influence,
Right.
No jazz and
And-
R&B. Okay.
And I know that I know a little about that, like certain like session musicians at the time are a key thing.
Right. My co-host Hollywood Steve likes to say that yacht rock is the sound of the Steely Dan musical family tree. So a lot of people who played with Steely Dan and like learned how to write more complex pop songs with jazz and R&B influence went on in their own groups to continue that sound and grow it and make it more popular.
Let's see.
And then once What a Fool Believes hit, then the world just became flooded with copycats. Robbie Dupree, Steal Away, He's So Shy by the Pointer Sisters. It was in the world, and it was proven to be a formula that created hits. So people were just using that sound for another couple of years.
So on our show, there's like a few like verdicts that have haunted us. Is there like a yacht song that has haunted you? Like, oh man, that's yacht. I should have made it yacht.
Yeah, I think there's some on both sides of the aisle. I think I was really pushed for Toto's. What's this? I'll Be Over You.
Oh, I'll Be Over You. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just way too much of a ballad. I think we were just really wanted it to be on the boat because Michael McDonald sings background vocals, and maybe that's enough to do it.
Well, the personnel's all there. It's got Toto, as Dave would say.
It does, but it's 86 and it's in that power ballad format. That's not yacht rock at all.
Is yacht rock entirely a thing of the past? Like, there's no future for yacht rock.
Oh no, my friend, no. There's so much new yacht rock being made now.
It's not. It doesn't matter that it's conscious of it.
No, it doesn't matter at all. I mean,
All
it was
right.
all conscious of it at a time. People were like, "How do I sound like Steely Dan? Let me try that." How do
Yeah,
I
but
sound
now
like the Doobie
musicians are
Brothers?
out there trying to get on your show. Like, I want to be yacht. You know.
I mean, if people want to get on our show with barely any listeners, I don't know what kind of goal that is. No, the people who are making it now are acolytes and fans of the session musicians of the LA scene of the 70s and 80s that were making that music. There's a band called State Cows out of Sweden, and they came to LA in the 90s when they were music students and got to meet, like, because one of their moms was this guitarist Jay Graydon, who plays in Steely Dan songs and is a big yacht rock guy, was his assistant. So they got to meet all the guys, and then they came back to Sweden, where these session guys and these jazz pop guys are all really popular anyway. And they started this band, State Cows, where they just make really authentic, wonderful yacht rock. There's a band out of Canada called Monkey House, led by a guy named Don Bright Haupt, who wrote the book on Steely Dan's Asia, the 33 1/3. It's a brilliant book. He's making yacht rock music now. Every day somebody's coming out and saying, "Oh, look at this song, JD. This is modern yacht rock, and it's great. It's really, really good." So people are still making it, and it's showing up in pop music too. Like,
it'll be your legacy. Too.
Yeah, the Jonas Brothers have a song called Waffle House. Super yachty.
Oh, cool.
I
look that up.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
This came out like a couple years ago, if not last year.
Nice. All right, and where can people check these podcasts out to learn more? Is it iTunes, Spotify, all the regular places?
I mean, everywhere. I guess I can go into what podcasts are and how to find them.
Okay, please, no. See,
Every single one of us are wherever
studio
you find
musicians.
podcasts.
It was in 1986.
We should be more exclusive. We should marry ourselves to one of them instead of that whole Buzzsprout thing.
We always ask our guests for movies that you think people should see. So what is a movie that you think people should see? You, JD.
Yeah, I know. I'm trying to think of what I've really enjoyed.
Oh, no.
lately. One movie I always think about, and I loved it so because I didn't know anything about it going in, and I saw it, and I'm like, how come nobody's talking about this movie? And they have since, but Barbarian. You guys talk about Barbarian ever? Anybody ever mention that?
Ben
movie?
Haslar,
What's that?
I recommended it.
I think we have
great.
recommended it. The trailer blew me away, but then the film itself. But what did you like about the film itself?
I just had no idea where it was going, and it satisfied me in every way it could.
I think like every act is. I think every act like tells its own story in a way that you don't know what's going to happen next, and that is pretty rare for at least me.
Yeah, it's just a really solid movie that
Did the
made
twist
great sense and surprised me and gave me more than I was expecting.
It is a cool one. I want to watch it again because the trailer made it had me really expecting one thing, and then you go in and I think I got I felt a little catfish.
It teased
so
the first act for you, well, right?
Yeah, but I expected the film to do something off that, Ben, and it really doesn't. Like, it doesn't matter that someone's else in that house. It doesn't matter who is. Like, all the same things happen. So but I want to watch it again because it is beautiful too. It's very well shot, right, JD?
Yeah.
It's really nice. Let's see now. So we got Ryan. What is your recommendation?
My chilly recommendation this week concerns a director whose work I had never explored until fairly recently. That is Long Island Auteur. There's that word again. Hal Hartley, 1997's Henry Fool. Now, I knew I was going to love this movie from the jump because it stars two of my favorite actors and full-blown crushes, James Urbaniak and Parker Posey. Posse represent, baby! The film follows a socially awkward garbage man with aspirations of becoming a poet and his surly, unemployed sister, whose lives are completely upended by the arrival of a bullshit philosophical drifter, the titular Henry Fool. The film boasts Hartley's unique brand of understated comedy, sometimes paradoxically leaning on gross-out physical bits and mannered performances, but honestly, you could put Urbaniak and Posey sitting quietly in front of a blank wall for 137 minutes, and I would walk away satisfied. Henry Fool is currently streaming as part of a 30-film Hal Hartley retrospective, alongside its two sequels, 2006's Fay Grim and 2014's Ned Rifle, on, you'll never guess, the Criterion Channel.
I was going to say Tubi.
I was thinking Tubi too. But socially awkward garbage man, huh? Not one of those outgoing bombastic ones.
Can't identify.
I know. Big Ben, beautiful Ben, what's your recommendation?
There's so few space horror films that I find are interesting, but there is one that I do like, Event Horizon, but I didn't have time to watch a new one, so I present you a dramatic reading of my Letterboxd review that I did 2 years ago. With the exception of the CGI objects floating around in Zero-G, Event Horizon looks fantastic. There's such great art design of the ship, and it feels foreign and creepy and consistent. It also manages to do space horror really well by introducing Lovecraftian elements, as well as various crew members start to go mad, having touched the forces from beyond our dimension. It's a film that was a box office failure, critically panned, but deservedly has obtained cult status. And it's really a shame that this film doesn't go further than it does, and indeed might have if it didn't have the trouble production it had and had this rushed theatrical cut. You can feel the cut playing it a little too safe with audiences and dipping its toe into the blood and gore too quickly before pulling it out, and it never feels like it's really fully itself and giving itself its full potential. Although admittedly, it could run the risk of going a little too out there. Still, what's here, I think, works far better than what people give it credit for. Paul W.S. Anderson doesn't have the best of track records, and you certainly can feel his influence here, but for me, this is where his style works. Sam Neill and Lawrence Fishburne are great. The film is eerie, mysterious atmosphere will always keep me engaged.
And guess where it's streaming right now, Ben?
The Criterion Channel?
Tubi? Yes.
Oh,
Never
Man,
Tubi.
nothing's on Tubi.
Schlendzo, give us something on Tubi.
Nope, I'm not. I'm sorry. I know, very, very out of character for me. But you see, Maynard, sometimes I just like an earnest family adventure that involves giant fighting robots.
Whoa!
So I am recommending Real Steel from 2011. With thoroughly agreeable leading man Hugh Jackman, we watch a father and his estranged son travel the country with their fighting robot. This is basically Rocky with robots. It's actually a little over the top as well. That is to say, over the top the Sylvester Stallone movie.
Right.
And frankly, I'm here for it. The child actor is not insufferable, and the supporting cast is very capable. It is nice just to watch a movie that is not trying to be bigger than anything but what it's promising. And we get it all. We get some family drama. We get the robots fighting. It's just a good time and an easy pick for your family movie night. The only demerit, it is a smidge over 2 hours. I can't find it streaming for free anywhere, but you probably owe Hugh Jackman one, so go ahead and rent it.
If only they could make fantasy robot fighting even half as cool as real robot fighting is now.
That's true.
Yeah, BattleBots is better than anything they put in that
saws
movie.
and stuff, yeah. Instead of rock and sock 'em.
Schlendzo, I gotta ask.
Yes, sir.
What's worse than zombies?
Worse than zombies.
Nazis.
Oh my God.
And what's even worse than that?
Nazi
werewolf
zombies.
Nazis.
Nazi zombies.
Oh, yeah,
They're
of course.
the dirt worst. And so my recommendation this week is 1977's Shockwaves. Directed by Ken Wiederhorn, known for Return of the Living Dead Part 2 and Meatballs 2. God, that's not a strong resume. It tells the story of a former SS commander, played by Peter Cushing, who tried to destroy his squad of unkillable zombie super soldiers, specialized in aquatic combat, mind you, by, let me check here, sinking their ship. Good try, Peter. They inevitably return years later to terrorize him and the unfortunate survivors of an inconveniently timed shipwreck on an isolated island in the Bahamas. The cast of this film does some heavy lifting, as it includes not only Cushing, but Brooke Adams of Invasion of the Body Snatchers, and the great John Carradine. The special effects are decent for the era and budget, and the aesthetic is delightfully campy enough to hold your interest for 86 minutes. Plus, it may be the first example of Nazi zombies in cinema, a proud tradition that carries on today with Dead Snow, Outpost, and Overlord. Shockwaves is currently streaming on Amazon Prime, and Peacock!
Overlord's so good, I need to recommend
I know.
that.
JD, do you watch Tubi?
I don't watch Tubi, but next time I'm on, I'll find a real good movie on Tubi to recommend.
Well, it's like free.
They do have good ones, despite what Dylan
Not many,
recommends every
though.
week.
So if you're just looking for a trash movie, turn on Tubi. It's free. Yeah, you got it. But with that, we are all out of show, but we want to thank our guest, JD Ryznar, for joining us. Thank you, JD.
Thank you for having me, gentlemen.
We're going to have you back, and we can't wait. I hope it's soon.
Whether you like it or not.
I like talking about movies.
Yes, and you're good at it, so that's why we like having you here. And we hope everyone else will join as well as the reels of justice keep turning.
Count it.
Industrial tunnels.
Please follow us on Twitter at Reels of Justice, Instagram Reels of Justice, and Facebook.com/Reels of Justice.